Hi everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Tackle Cave. Today we'll be talking about the Phenix Iron Feather Rod Blank. I'll be sharing my impressions of this blank as it's not easy to find pictures or even reviews about it online, even though it's been around for quite a while now. I'm also going to give some measurements on the blank so that fellow rod builders out there can refer to this if required. But first, a little bit about this blank. It is Phenix's flagship ultralight model. It was first produced for the United States market about 10 years ago, and it's available as a rod blank like this, or as an off-the-shelf production rod, which means that the rod will be completed with a reel seat, with guides, and sold as a rod ready to use. This is also an expensive rod blank. It costs between $220 to $230 per blank. Today, we'll be looking at the IF722-2B blank. This is a 7'2" rod blank, or it's 2.2 meters in length with an extra fast or fast action. The blank weighs 1.4 ounces or just under 40 grams. It's a 2-section blank, as you can see here, rated 1 to 9 pounds. Recommended casting weight for this blank is between 1/16 and 3/8 of an ounce, or 1.5 to 10.5 grams. Although it does seem that it can cast much lighter, but I'll get to that when I talk about the tip. This is actually a very unusual rating for an ultralight blank, as it has a very wide range of line ratings and low casting weights. What you get when you purchase this blank, you get the blank here, you get 2 decals, one with the rod specifications, as you can see here it's quite long. You get one with the Phenix logo. You also get this guide here, which is something I've not seen from other manufacturers done before. They provide you this tip here. This is actually a Fuji LG light spinning guide that is actually a titanium framed, and it has a SIC ring, and it's a size 4. Phenix itself, they recommend that you use titanium guides for this rod so you don't dull the characteristics by using heavy guides that may dull the action and the recovery of this rod. You can also use other guides that are really lightweight, such as American Tackle Airwaves or even Pac Bay minimal match guides. I don't have a one-piece rod to compare these to, but I would guess that they are kind of the same. The butt section actually comprises of a singular tube, if you can see here. It's just one full section. The diameter is about equal all between, except for this little bump here. But the diameter runs from about 12 to 12.5, or just under 12.5. So if you're looking to get groups for this, about 12 or 12.5 is good if you want to preform, if you're not cutting them yourself. So this tip is actually pretty thick, if you can see. I'm just going to do a comparison, because most ultralight rods that we find in the market, even medium lights, they have a diameter about 6.5 to about maybe 11.5, and this Iron Feather has about 12 to 12.5. If you can see, there's a very distinct difference between this rod here, which is actually a 2 to 4 CTS. Just have a look. The thickness is actually quite different. It's actually a little bit of a broken rod, but you can see if I take the CTS here, I can actually fit it in the Phenix very easily with lots of gap. I suspect this is done to give the blank butt power, as the diameter of the tube is fairly large. So this actually makes for a very stiff back end with a lot of power. The Japanese call it butt power. So it's going to have a really stiff butt section. So if you look here, actually there's 2 sections of this back end of the rod. This tube here, which is one part, and then another part here that has a little taper over here. If you look closely, it's tapered, so I think that this actually has a carbon roving or something built into it, so it strengthens the joint of the tip. For the taper, the front of it is about 9 to 9.5 millimeters in diameter. The end here is about 11 to 11.5 if you're looking to get winding checks and stuff. I suspect this is done so to strengthen the joint between these 2 sections. It is a 2-piece rod. There are actually 4 sections in this rod, but this has been glued inside. You can't remove it. It's been glued really tightly. Now we get to the front section of the rod. I think the blank walls of this blank, over here is really thin. That's how they got the weight down a lot. So if I'm not wrong, this is about 0.38 thickness. Yeah, it's about 0.38 millimeters in thickness. It's a really thin walled blank, if you can hear. It's not really solid at all, but you know, most high quality blanks are thinner because the modulus is a lot higher. You don't really require a lot of material for the hoop strength and the scrim. And most high quality rods, they have thinner walls. So just make sure you take care of this rod if you're going to get it, because you know, with thin walls, you bump it against walls, you drop it on rocks, it's going to break, man. For the tip section of the rod, which is another very interesting point of this rod, it's also another type of two section kind of design, just like the butt end we saw before. This rod actually has a solid tip. You can see it's really thin in the front. So I think that this rod can actually throw a lot lighter than 1/16 of an ounce or 1.5 grams. I'm going to suspect it's going to be able to throw, you know, a gram or half a gram easily. So you can see there's no step here. It's probably put inside. The graphite of this blank is actually rolled over, and the blank is heat treated in the oven after that. So there's no obvious joints, it goes straight inside. I've actually made a solid tip for another rod in the repair, maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. I'll show you the difference. This one's a bit thicker because it's probably a medium light rod or something. Most other solid tips, they actually have a little step, if you can see here. This is the joint between the two sections. There's a step that actually matches the taper of the rod. So this solid tip here, I actually made it. So when it goes inside here, there's a little slit that goes in between the, what do you call it, the tube of the rod, and a step here so you can fit the taper so it matches nicely. So I mean, once you wrap that with carbon roving or rod building thread, whatever you're going to use, you can't really see that joint. Just another thing I want to show you guys is a comparison between this iron feather and let's say a standard ultralight, maybe tubular rod blank that you might encounter. This one's again the CTS. If you can see the obvious difference between the iron feather, which is on the top, and the CTS, which is at the bottom. The CTS has a 1.8mm tip diameter here, and the iron feather is a 0.8. If you can see, you can really obviously see the difference between them. So the iron feather has a really thin tip and a really thick butt end compared to most other ultralight rods that you might find on the market right now. Another interesting thing about this rod is that Phenix laid the fibers for the solid tip in a single direction, which is parallel to the rod. The good thing about solid tips, especially if you're playing soft plastics, or you know, in Japan, Japanese always say that the aji fish, when they bite soft plastics, they tend to spit it out. They can feel the resistance. For a solid tip like this, you can normally see the bite with the tip moving before you can actually feel it. So this is a lot of visual sensitivity, so don't compare it to a tubular rod, it's going to be different. So the thing is, you'll get a tip indication like that, really soft, but when you want to set the hook, it transitions into this part here, which is the tubular section, which is quite fast action, so you can actually strike without losing much power from the solid tip, which is actually a really good thing. This will actually transition to the really large diameter butt section that we talked about before, in this section and area over here. So this will actually allow you to have butt power and control over, let's say, fish in case they're too big, or you know, you're targeting, let's say, really small fish and something bigger comes along. You still are able to present the finesse baits and maybe, you know, bring in the big one. I think that this will make a very interesting ultralight rod, as it can be used for a variety of techniques. I've seen guys in the US using this purely as a drop shot rod, and they say it's pretty good for it. It has a blank style that reminds me of Japanese JDM, Ajing and Mibaru rods, which are amazing for light tackle techniques. But the problem with such rods, like, you know, the Ajing rods and stuff, they're only designed to cast really small lures like this, from maybe like half a gram to 5 grams, or maybe like, you know, 3/16 of an ounce maximum. So the versatility of them are really low. With the iron feather, I think the uniqueness is its versatility, which allows you to play really small lures like this, along with, you know, maybe larger trees, swim baits, and, you know, slightly bigger hard lures in like 70-80 millimeters, as long as they don't go above 10 grams or 3/8 of an ounce. It is also a pretty expensive rod blank, and I can't really verify where it's made. I think it's made in China, but some places they say it's made in Japan. Even if it's made in China, it seems to be a really high quality rod blank, and everything about it indicates that it's a quality blank. It's light, you know, the action's really good, joints are well made, finishing is really nice. And as I said before, I think the key thing about this rod blank, if you're thinking about buying it, is its versatility. It has a wide range of line weights that can be used with it, a wide range of lure weights that can be used with it, compared to like, you know, other ultralight rods in the market right now. I mean, you can do it, but like, you know, you are going to overload your rod, you know, possibility of breakage and stuff like that is pretty high. Another thing is that this rod can be used as ultralight rod, a light rod and a medium light rod. Especially if you're only going to carry one setup. Sometimes you don't want to be just fiddling with small things. If the fish are only biting larger things, you're kind of stuck with just throwing these when you need to be throwing these. With the iron feather, you can actually do both of these pretty easily, and it's a pretty good pick if you want to do that. Like, you know, versatile finesse. So if you guys have been thinking about picking one up, I think it's a good choice and you probably won't regret it. If you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to comment below. If you learned something today and want to see more content, be sure to like and subscribe.